Speaking of the cruiserweights, you did focus a lot or had a lot of cruiserweights, and it seemed like you were the only developmental at the time that really put an emphasis on cruiserweights at that time.
Well, you know what? It's just basically because I think they sent me all the cruiserweights because I had quite a few cruiserweights at the time for no particular reason. It's just the way it ended up. Well, started my first trainee that walk in was Shark Boy,
Hmm.
right? Who was obviously a cruiserweight. And so size, we just never had a lot of big guys until, I started working with developmental. And so then we got the bigger guys. But I think they just kind of they sent us, the cruiserweights, sent the heavyweights down to Ohio Valley, right?
Hmm.
And then split the girls. They got more girls in Ohio Valley. We didn't get as many females, but we had a couple already. So, we had to start on that as well.
Now, when the deal with WCW ended, did you still have contracted talent at your facility, or were they already gone?
No, no, there were no. I never had any talent actually come and stay for like a week or 2 weeks.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It was all. I'm keep waiting for the big thing to happen, and the big thing. But again, a part of that was I realized too from setting up this whole deal is the people who understood wrestling weren't the ones that actually had the hands on the money, right? Who could pay this guy or hire this guy or hire that guy. It was a crazy deal. It truly was a great facility that they had in Atlanta, right? And
Hmm.
everything. But it just, well, because of the conglomerate, and everybody's saying wrestling, look down your nose at wrestling. We don't like wrestling, so we don't, that sort of thing. And it
Hmm.
was just kind of crazy, kind of crazy.
But then you ended up with majority of the WCW talent after they bought them out.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Shannon and Jamie Noble and Jimmy Yang and that whole crew, Shannon
Hmm.
Moore and that whole crew. Yeah, we had. I keep saying we had a cruiserweight treasure chest. Believe me. I mean, Taz Hayashi. We had some a tremendously good talent there at one time.
Now, when the WWE deal officially became a thing, did they give you any direction or what they wanted from you, or they just wanted you to see what you could do with these guys and gals?
Well, no, they never really gave me, train them.
Hmm.
That was teach them to wrestle or, make them better than they are currently. And so that was, the whole start of everything there. Uh, we had some, I mean, like I say, we had probably 35 trainees, period, right? Plus a half dozen from my school and, a guy walking in here or there. So we stayed plenty busy. We really did. Uh, it was a great time because if you were there at the time, I mean, realize Eddie Guerrero came through for a few weeks, right? Mysterio was there for a few. I mean, damn, if you couldn't learn there, you just or down at OVW the same way.
Hmm.
Danny and Jimmy had a hell of a crew down there. You're seeing a lot of that. Well, one of them just retired, Cena,
Hmm.
right? John just retired. Randy was there, Randy Orton. They had a hell of a crew down. I mean, between the two, we could have started our own promotion. I mean, legitimately, and had a good run at it. But yeah, it was great to work with a crew that talented and that deep in talent too.
Now, how was it managing all of these kids at the time?
Yes. Well, you know what? Everybody, the guys who were there wanted, to the most part, to be there, right? I mean,
Hmm.
now I won't say the same thing when the WCW guys got sent to some to me, most of them to me, as a matter of fact. Uh, there were guys, I don't really belong here. My statement to them was, "Don't say that too loud,"
Hmm.
you know, because, well, you know, it's we realize all the time in Major League Baseball, a guy gets sent down to the minors to get his curveball working better or get a better eye on the bat. His batting's off or something. So it's not a sin to go into a minor league, deal, except that these guys had been, well, like Jamie, no, well, like 3 count and
Hmm.
OB, Jamie and Jimmy and and Shannon. These guys were the main roster. They were part of the main roster. Now all of a sudden, what are we doing here, right? Now,
Hmm.
those particular guys were not, but there were a few guys, and it ended up costing them because they didn't give 100%, right? It's like, well, I don't want to be here. And in situations like that, you realize you can't, there's times you can't talk to somebody. You can't
Hmm.
make it right by just saying, you need to just bust your ass here and it'll be okay. Because that's what they want to see anyway. Are you busting your butt here? Right?
Hmm.
And
Oh yeah.
you'll get a chance to move up. But with some of the guys, it just wasn't that way. They just weren't interested.
Now, did you get an initial list of the talents that were coming to work with you, or did they just start
Oh,
showing up?
yeah, better than that. JR sent me a video of matches that some of the small towns they were running around Memphis, right?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, so I got to see the crew I was getting, and I thought, damn. And you know what? Two of the guys I didn't get were a young man by the name of Brian Danielson and another little kid by the name of what I'm trying to think of his real name now. Damn it. Anyway, yeah, Brian got let go before they sent the crew to me.
Hmm.
You realize how many times he had been up and down in that company, and then he finally got the big push, and it went through the ceiling for God's sakes. But yeah,
Hmm.
he been up and down several times in that company. But and
Hmm.
Spanky came Spanky came to me. He wasn't part of the deal. He had been let go. Spanky came and said, "Can I come and train?" I said, "Yes, you most certainly can." And he busted. I mean, I didn't have to let him come, but he was a good talent. He wanted to work, and if he's willing to work, I'm willing, to put him to work. We had a crew, extremely talented young men at that time, and Lord, so but well, everybody wanted to go up. Everybody,
Hmm.
why am I not getting a dark match? Why am I not getting a dark match? Well, there's only so many dark matches.
Hmm.
You got two developmental systems, and probably between the two places, you got 60 or 70 guys, male, 60 or 70 talents, male and female. You can't run them all out to do dark matches at the same time. There's just no damn way. You couldn't do it. And the ones that OVW, like Lesnar, hell, Brock was making 6 figures a year training.
Hmm.
He was he was getting some serious dollars and cents, to be an OVW. But yeah, it was everybody wanted to go up. Everybody wondered why I'm so and so got a dark match last week. Why didn't I get one? I don't know. That if there was a real shortcoming there, Brian, it would have been realizing that like I had to work with these guys every day. Danny and Jimmy worked with them the guys in OVW every day, right?
Hmm.
So all the people in Stanford saw was the tape shows that we sent up for them to watch, right?
Yeah.
Like they'd see somebody with size, and of course at the time, Vince was the boss, so size was important then, and that guy's going to get a look. I don't care if he's
Hmm.
awful, he's going to get a look because he's got size, right? So I may have two guys that are half his size, but are twice the workers he is, right? They're wondering, why the hell aren't I getting a look, right? And that's, in the situation, you realize in the real world of football, baseball, and basketball, if you can shoot a basketball, throw a football, or hit a baseball, you're going to get a contract
Hmm.
for how talented you are. But in our business, it doesn't really matter. I've seen
Yeah.
some very untalented guys make a lot of money. Some very talented guys not get paid enough, honestly.
Hmm.
It's subjective many times. It's somebody sees you and says, oh, okay, that kid Brian you got, I want to use him. I see something in him. Somebody else, I say, hey, so and so wants Brian. I don't see what he sees in that kid.
Hmm.
Subjective. So it's and it's tough to deal with that. You I started dreaming about being a wrestler when I was 9 years old, for Christ's sake. I made it 10 years later. I got to be one.
Hmm.
Uh, but it was a whole nother time too, a lot different. I went to the first wrestling school open to the general public. And so that's where Dusty showed up there later. A year after I started, Luke Graham started there, right? So it wasn't like, but it was the one in the entire United States. Today, where you and I, probably within 100 miles of you, there's at least three wrestling schools, right?
Hmm.
And probably within 100 miles of where I'm at, there's probably a dozen or a half a dozen at least, right?
Hmm.
And most of those don't have a clue. I
Yeah.
mean, they really do not have a clue, right? So it's a crazy world to get to because of it being so subjective. You know, you
Hmm.
a guy can come. I've seen it. Somebody look at this guy's size. Oh man, you got the size, and he's yeah, I'm big, I'm big. Okay, but what you don't have is talent. You can't. As the old saying goes, you can't slap your ass with both hands. Can't find your ass to slap it, right? So it's frustrating as hell for young guys or women for that matter trying to make it in this industry. I mean, it's been that way, but
Mhm.
more so now because there are idiots. Let me repeat that: there are idiots out there who will tell you they will train you and get you ready, and most of those guys need to be trained themselves. They're
Yep.
they're training you because they can't get a job in this industry. That's why they've opened a school, right? To become a great trainer without any experience. I don't know how that works, but what the hell. But yeah, so it's a crazy deal. But developmental, uh, man, if you've been to the PC, I was a guest coach there for a week. I thought, damn, I want to take this home with me, right? All this space and rings and Lord knows what all. I mean, and they've expanded now. I know Dr. Tom, was down there for a week just a while back, and they've opened up even more now.
Mhm.
They've doubled the size of the facility for God's sakes. But yeah, it's a tough, terrible misconception. And I've been doing this over six. I've been my 66th anniversary in this business was this past July the 4th, right?
Mhm.
Uh, you Everybody thinks it's a show, so it's easy. It's not
Mhm.
easy. There's nothing easy about it. And well, it's simple. You wouldn't believe the guys who take a bump and decide, well, maybe it's not simple. Maybe I misread the whole thing. I'm gone. I mean, I've had guys come into me. I had a young man come from California, and his high school graduation present was tuition to my school. Right? Uh, he got an apartment close enough they could ride his bike back and forth to training and stuff. And if you held a gun to my head and said, "Where is that kid today?" I'd say, "I give up. I don't know. He disappeared. He left. Never said goodbye or nothing." Right? I mean, He found it was too tough, and that's the thing.
Hmm.
Everybody, it's a show. It's a show. It's a show. Yeah, okay. But it's a physical show.
Hmm.
Earlier this week, Regal wrote about guys with neck injuries. Lord, he didn't mention Harley Race, who one of the things Harley used to always say, if we could turn the clock back, I'd never do another diving headbutt off the damn top rope to save my life.
Hmm.
It's a grind. They talk about it being the grind, or can you stay in the grind? Some kid will say, "Well, I'm tired. Are you tired?" Yeah, man. Why? What's realize I wrestled three times in 6 days. Wow, is that all? I used to wrestle 7 times in 6 days sometimes. Two matches on Sunday, right?
Hmm.
And that was it, man. That was the grind. You were gone. You were working 5 6 days a week. It's not a game. It's
Hmm.
it's hard work, and it takes talent, and it takes time to develop that talent. And I think that's what the kids don't understand.
Hmm.
But once you get a couple bumps, you understand that.
Was
Have you ever been trained? Have you ever tried to train?
Oh, listen. I tried it. I like to do what I'm doing now.
that that says volumes. That says volumes, man. It
First time
really.
you get hit in your teeth, you're like, ah.
Yeah. What is it? Tyson says you got a plan, you get hit in the mouth, and then your plan goes out the window.
Yeah. I've
Well,
always liked the behind the scenes stuff. That's where like
yeah.
that's always drawn me in.
Well, during the time that I had Heartland Wrestling Association, we were covered. True Life. I'm a pro wrestler. A big segment of that was filmed with me. And then ABC 2020 covered us and the power plant, both. And it's crazy. I'll tell you a funny story about 2020. The host, the guy who was going to be like the host for that segment, right? They were here to train. They came in and filmed for 3 or 4 days. Then he came in, pulled up in his rent a car, cool sweatsuit on. He was. And then the fun began. Well, I want you to show me. Okay, we're going to show you. We gave him flying mares, snap mares, call them whatever you like, hip blocks, that sort of body slant. Damn, that does hurt. Hey, guess what? I knew that all along. In fact, if you see that old show when he and I are sitting down talking, he said, "You didn't tell me it didn't hurt." I said, "You didn't ask me if it hurt." But and here's the thing. If you've never taken a bump, you don't know how to take a bump, right? We put him through, like I say, the hip blocks and snap mares and some things like that. None of those made the light of day because the host of that segment did not look good doing them. That's the main thing. But yeah, but that's been going on, like I say, 66 years of my life. Oh,
Hmm.
that's all. That's nonsense. Okay, yeah, let me come on in the ring and take a couple bumps, and then get back to me when you see the nonsense. Okay, it ain't necessarily so, as the song
No.
says.
Was there clear communication with WWE during the developmental time? Because
Yeah,
I know.
well, now I sent like a report card on a weekly, fax the report card up, and that was just basically I weighed everybody once a week, but I took attendance.
Hmm.
If a guy was here every day, no problem. If he was not, so and so was sick, so and so was this, or so and so was that. Uh, it got crazy occasionally. So one of the funniest things, you know who Johnny the Bull is, right?
Hmm.
Okay, great kid. He really was. Good guy. Good guy. Now, some of the guys, if we had a long weekend where we didn't have a show on Saturday, they might go home, for Saturday and Sunday and come back. We start train 10 a.m. Monday morning, right? Be in the
Hmm.
gym Monday morning. So anyway, uh, I'm in the gym this Monday morning and my phone rings. It's Johnny the Bull. Johnny said, Les, I'm not going to be able to make it today. I said, where are you, John? I'm in Atlanta. What the hell are you doing in Atlanta? You're supposed to be here. Why aren't you here? Well, my girlfriend's dog died. I said, my question remains, why aren't you here? Well, she took it pretty hard. So I've got to stay for the funeral. John, okay, here's the deal. And I told off when the guys got here, I said, look, if you are right in this situation, and I will fight for you, right? If you're wrong, I'm not going to lie for you and lose my job, so you don't lose yours. That's not going to happen, right? But I said, John, you know what? You got to get, I'll cover for you today. Your ass better be in this gym tomorrow at 10 a.m. No matter, I don't care if it's 10 feet of snow on the ground, you better be in this gym. Because if somebody from Stanford calls today and say, we want Johnny the Bull tonight in such and such, do I tell them to send the ticket, the airline ticket to Atlanta? And they'll say, why? Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But I mean, now in a situation like that, I understood. I mean, I did. As stupid as it sounds, he went to a dog's. But how do I tell Vince McMahon? Vince, he went to his dog's funeral, his girlfriend's dog's funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Moving right along. But yeah, I had a good crew. I had a real good crew of guys. They worked hard. Everybody, there's be little nonsensical things that happens with guys that don't get on or don't that this guy didn't like the way this guy did this or something. And it's been happening like that all my life in this business, so that I'm used to all that stuff. But that's the thing too. Uh, a lot of people don't think, well, I had a reputation as being a mean old son of a bitch, right? Okay. At times I could be a mean old son of a bitch. You're right, I could. But the point is, I've done this. I lived that same dream they were trying to live then. Not it. I couldn't live it as fancy as they were living it because nobody was paying me to learn. I I was I was paying me to learn. But it's one of the toughest things I've ever done, Brian, is to tell you we're cutting you loose. I
Hmm.
got a phone call today, Brian, and they're letting you go. I had some very good guys sit in my office and cry their eyes out. And I felt so bad seriously, about having to tell them, you're done here. Because I'd had the same dream and was
Hmm.
still living my dream, for Christ's sake, as a trainer. But yeah, but those are the guys who are going to make it anyway. Those who let you see their feelings, they will be back. They will push hard. They will get it done again. They will
Oh
most
yeah.
certainly, you know, because they wanted that. But that's something from my generation. The talk there was everybody. What Jimmy Cornette has. If you listen to Jimmy, I love this business. I had a passion for the business. It wasn't about being seen on TV or it wasn't about making $1 trillion. It was just, I want to be a wrestler. By God, and that's what I wanted to be. And that's not the case anymore. Now it's the case, be a big star, make a lot of money, this and that. And all that's good too, you know. But
Hmm.
still, you gotta have it here.
Yep.
You really do. You gotta have a
Hmm.
passion for it here to excel. And the guys who excel today have that passion. They do.
Would they reach out? Like, how often would they reach out to send someone to do a dark match or be on the road, or would you
Well, it
send?
just depends. They would call up some guys and they'd go out. And like with one of my guys, we did a 3 day run. We did Chicago, Milwaukee, and Indianapolis. He did 3 dark matches. I made the trip with him because he was one of my guys. And it's a grind.
Hmm.
It's a grind. And you find out so many things when you're on that grind too. Here's something that I'll explain to you right now about it. I mentioned the guy that was did a 3-day stint with Chicago, Milwaukee, and Indianapolis. Uh, in Indy, they had, I forget who the guy kid was he was going to work with, but they had laid the early part of the match out, but they had got around talking. They said, "Oh, we found we're not going to have enough time for that, so you guys aren't not working tonight." So I'm sitting watching the matches on a monitor in the back, and Teddy comes up and said, "Where's Race?" Was the kid that I had it. "Where's Race?" I said, "I don't know, Ted. Why?" "What? He's on next." "What? Okay, we got to go find him, right? And he's on next." We're in this huge coliseum. What part of this world is he in? So somebody had gotten to him from somebody that Teddy had been talking to. Had found him, and Sergeant Slaughter and I had gone looking for him, and here he comes up the aisle pulling his trunks on and everything, right? But the biggest thing was the kid he was going to wrestle was accustomed to laying everything out in the back,
Hmm.
right? Which is very new to this industry,
Hmm.
much newer back then than it is currently, right? But here's the thing: the kid is running alongside Race uh, toward the gorilla position, and said, "Well, Race said, I'll call it on the ring." And right there, he scored big points with any veteran that was close by.
Hmm.
Because there's something, we can get an argument over all this great. Well, you got to call it all. Here's the deal: mistakes happen. People make mistakes. Human beings have human frailties. They make
Hmm.
mistakes. Right? You better know how to shift gears in that ring. Let's say you and I are having a match. Let's say we're going 15 minutes. 5 minutes in, and you're excuse me, you're going over with some elaborate big move off the top rope, right? Off the top turnbuckle. And 5 minutes in, you pull a hamstring.
Hmm.
Not bad enough that we can't finish the match, but bad enough you're not climbing to that top turnbuckle at the end. We have to change the finish while we're in there. We can't call timeout and go to the back and talk another 30 minutes over what should be the finish and come back and walk through it. And I've been there, seen it, don't never done it in my life, and I couldn't memorize 15-minute match move for move if you held a gun to my head. But you better know how to change, shift gears, and incorporate things that weren't put there for you. Otherwise, you're in a world of hurt, brother. You really
Hmm.
are. Because you got to know how to shift gears. And that was one of the things right there. If Race had known, what would those two guys have done out there? If Race said, "Well, I can't call it on the ring," guy said, "Well, I can't either." What are they going to do? Say, "Well, we're going home." Hey, you guys are here looking to get a job with this company. You better get your asses out there and do something, even if it's wrong, right? So, yes, learning how to call a match on the fly is, to me, a necessity. The great trainers will teach it to you. The guys who aren't so great wouldn't know how to teach it to you anyway. So, that's pretty much it. But yes, it's imperative because mistakes come up where you have to change something. You need to be able to do that. I'll tell you a quick story about 1966. Gone into Atlanta, Georgia for the first time. My first night at the old Atlanta Auditorium where Georgia Championship Wrestling wrestled every Friday night. So my partner is going to be Roger Kirby, and Leo Garibaldi is the booker. And he says tonight, he said, "Now, I know it's your first night in Atlanta, Les, but I want you to know I'm not to start jobbing you out right away." He said, "But these guys are going to be my top heel team.
Hmm.
I need to get them over, right? They're new in the territory." Now, I don't know if Kirby had ever worked with them or not. I'd never even heard of the guy. Okay. So, okay, fine, whatever. So we come up with a finish. Now, Leo was not just a booker; he also refereed. They used two referees on the bigger shows, and he'd referee like every other match. So we've got him as a referee for our match. So we get started, and it's one of those nights that you couldn't have made a mistake if you set out to make a mistake on purpose, right? I mean,
Mhm.
the we had the people in the palm of our hands, right? I never worked with these two guys before, and like I say, I'm not sure if Kirby had or not. I'm guessing he probably had. Anyway, we're tearing the old auditorium in Atlanta down. Leo's our referee. He comes around. He said, "We're not wasting this match. Here's the new finish." He told the new finish to the two of us in the ring, the two guys on the outside. We never missed a beat. Put the new finish in, and we're to return to come back the next week because the match was that good. How many guys today could do that?
Mhm. Not a lot.
You've got the rest of our afternoon to get to come and sit and tell me about what there's going to be one or two
Hmm.
that could do that, but yeah, it's a whole nother ball game. It truly is, and learning this business is not easy. Period. End of
No.
story. It's not.
Mm-mm.
Take it from my friend Brian, who how many weeks did you train before you said I'm going to be a podcaster instead?
Not, not even two, three.
Not even two.
Now I did. So when I was younger, I did try it, and I trained up in Lafayette with a guy named Billy Rock, and that I thought was going well for me. Um, he even told me that my hip tosses look like Ricky Steamboat at one point. So, but I could never get out of my own head to do everything in the ring. Like I could never not think that I was doing something wrong. Like I was my own worst enemy.
Right.
But then I knew that I loved professional wrestling, and I just needed to find what my place could be, and it wasn't in the ring at all. And I don't want to waste anyone's time or take anyone's spot, or wait. Just if someone can do that, then
Right.
let me do something that I could potentially be good at, and it's not performing in the ring.
But you know what? You just made a very valid point because I've told a lot of guys, everybody's not going to be the next John Cena or the next Lou Thez.
Hmm.
Everybody's not going to be a great heel or a great manager, but they have referees,
Hmm.
you know, they have writers, they have you can work in this business without actually being the next star of the biggest show on earth, right? That sort of thing. Sure. So yeah. But you're right. You can, well, that's I've jumped, people George South, who George is, right?
Hmm.
Okay. He said, if I'm starting territory, I'm hiring Les Thatcher. That'll save me paying 11 other guys because he's done 12 jobs in the business. But Leo, I mentioned Leo Garibaldi earlier, who was an extremely strong mentor to me, but one of the great bookers of my lifetime in this business. I mean, creative genius if there ever was one. And but he told me one time, he said, I don't understand it. Leo had started wrestling with his dad. I used to watch them from Hollywood Legion Stadium back on the old black and white 10-inch screen. Seriously, Leo and
Hmm.
Gino Garibaldi. But anyway, uh, he said, I don't understand guys who spend 20 years of their life, 25 years of their life, 30 in this business, and then they decide, okay, I'm retiring. Wait a minute, I'm going to buy a bar, but you don't know anything about run. I know how to drink, right? And so they buy a bar and they run out of money. His point being is if you spend 30 years in this business, you must know something about this business. If you have been a working talent for 30 years, right?
Hmm.
So why don't you try doing something that you know about for 30 years and been doing for 30 years, opposed to buying a bar, right? Or
Oh
a
yeah.
restaurant, something like that. And I thought, okay, that's so. With me, I transitioned to broadcasting, then transitioned to doing magazines, then I transitioned to training, and I've been a booker and this and that. But you know what? You don't know till you try. All
Yep.
those things. that I have done, I never considered, like when I decided I want to be a wrestler, I wanted to be a wrestler. I didn't say, hey, I hope I want to be a color commentator, right? Or I want to be a trainer. I didn't know there was such a thing as a wrestling trainer, for God's sake. But yeah, you know, learn your business and utilize what you know once you stop taking the bumps. Road dog is an example. You have a Brian Armstrong, Brian
Hmm.
James, whatever you want to call it, who's looking behind the scenes, right? Came from a wrestling family. Him and all his brothers and his dad all wrestled. And but you know, he transitioned to a writer now. They call them writers, bookers, whatever their title might be. But yeah, it's and here's the thing. I am going to say this and probably piss the people off, but then I've been known to do that before too. The best storylines in this business come from guys who have wrestled
Hmm.
in this day and age. Now, the talk about Tony Khan is he doesn't understand the business. He's a tape trader, collector, been a fan since ever, right? He's been okay, but he hasn't been inside.
Hmm.
So it shows in his booking, right? Uh, the guy that owns NWA, right? Corey, right? Musician. You're seeing his version of
Hmm.
wrestling, which would not be my version or probably anybody else's version, you know, but it's his money. So it can be whatever he wants it to be. That's the whole deal, right?
Hmm.
But to really be a damn good booker, you need to have wrestled. So you need to know what it's like to be inside that ring, in the middle of it all, right? And it is. I mean, it's just the way it is. And so many guys, and I think that's there are many. If you are a young man watching us on this show, and you want to be a wrestler, the first thing you do when somebody says, "Well, there's this guy, in the next town over, or so and so, he trains professional wrestlers." The first thing you want to know, what was his experience? How long did he wrestle?
Hmm.
I've heard so many stories about so many BS stories about. Years ago, somebody told me I was trained by the original assassin. You probably don't know who the assassins were. They were Tom Renesto and Jody Hamilton, right?
Hmm.
I said, Tom or Jody? Huh? I said, which one trained you, Tom Renesto or Jody Hamilton? No, it's Bill Smith or somebody like that. Right? But Bill didn't have to show his, I
Hmm.
he would you wouldn't recognize me. I was wearing a mask. No, and I couldn't recognize you if you weren't wearing a mask because you're right. But that's the main thing. Find out what that trainer, that track record of that guy, right?
Hmm.
Well, he trains a little indie guys that their world champion lives here. Their world champion hadn't been out of Suez County or whatever in the last 10 years, for Christ's sake. But yeah, it's as easy as it may look, it is not that easy. It just is not.
No.
The saying was back when I broke in the business that it took you 5 years probably to really learn and for the light bulb to go off over your head and say, yeah, now I got it.
Hmm.
Okay, if it took you 5 years when you were wrestling 3 to 5 nights a week, what's it taking these indie guys who are wrestling twice a month, 3 times a month, or
Yep.
once a week,
Hmm.
right? You can't everything about this business. You go to a legitimate school, you will be asked to do repetitive drills where you're doing the same thing over and over and over. And the reason for that is you've got to come up with that same thing, boom, like that, right?
Yep.